Here are Grandpa's 41 advanced survival and bushcraft hacks you probably didn't know. Mix permanganate and glycerin quickly. Grandpa used to say fire is a servant that turns into a monster when rushed. Old survival manuals mention this chemical pairing because it creates heat fast, even without a flame. The danger is that it does so violently and without warning. In bushcraft circles, it's known more as a lesson than a tool. It teaches respect for reaction heat and timing. Modern survival practice treats this trick as knowledge, not a go-to method. Understanding chemistry beats trusting sparks when mistakes cost skin. Preserve embers inside char cloth. Did you know early woodsmen carried fire in their pockets instead of lighting a new one each night? Char cloth helped because it holds heat quietly rather than burning fast. Proper char captures a glowing coal safely and keeps it alive long enough to birth a fresh flame later. This method worked before matches were common and lighters existed. Today, char cloth is still valued because it teaches heat control and patience. Fire isn't just about starting it, it's about carrying it forward responsibly when nature refuses to cooperate. Catch spark using dry chaga. Grandpa called chaga nature's fire sponge. That old classic trick wasn't about speed, it was about reliability. Dried chaga mushrooms will take a weak spark and hold it instead of wasting it. It doesn't blaze, it glows. That slow glow can be nursed into flame when everything else is damp or stubborn. Mountain men trusted it because it behaved predictably in bad weather. Firecraft like this is about reading materials, not forcing outcomes. Smart bushcraft favors patience over flash every single time. Ignite fat wood for wet fire. Fat wood earned its name honestly. It's pine heartwood soaked in resin, and that resin gives it unmatched fire. Starting power when conditions are miserable. When rain ruins tinder and wind eats sparks, fat wood still answers. It burns hot and smells sharp long before other wood wakes up. Bushcrafters value it because it trades a frustration for certainty. You don't hunt it for fun. You hunt it because every disaster eventually becomes a fire problem. Warmth, signal, water, safety. Fatwood handles all four when forests are unfriendly. Touch steel wool to battery. This trick appears in survival books because it demonstrates how energy can become heat instantly. Steel wool conducts and burns because of its fine threads, and batteries provide sudden power. It looks clever, but it borders on reckless without conditions being right. Used wrong, it becomes a flash injury. Used as knowledge, it becomes a lesson in energy transfer. Real bushcraft is about controlled reaction, not spectacle. You're not lighting fire for applause, you're lighting it so you live through the night when everything else fails you cold. Sop morning dew with bandana. In dry country, morning can be kinder than noon if you catch it right. Before the sun climbs, walk through tall grass and brush with a clean bandana until the cloth grows heavy. Wring it into a cup or straight into your mouth. This works because dew settles thick overnight while air rests. Desert travelers use dawn like a water hour. One slow walk can yield more than expected when streams are silent. Nature pays those who arrive early and moves on from sleepers. Bag leafy branch for water. Find a healthy branch with plenty of leaves, slip a clear bag over it, and tie it tight at the base. Set it where sunlight hits. Moisture slowly gathers inside and drips into the lowest point of the bag. This happens because plants release water through their leaves, especially when warmed by light. It is quiet water making with no digging. In survival lore, this trick is called borrowing from the tree. Take only from strong plants and move once the bag fills. Filter water through sapwood stick. Not all wood is the same when thirst comes calling. Fresh sapwood from pine or similar trees can slow germs as water passes through it. Early travelers used this knowledge when streams looked clear but felt risky. It works because the natural structure inside young wood catches many bacteria like a maze. This is not magic and not perfect, but it helped before filters came in plastic. When nothing else is available, nature offers tools wearing bark instead of labels. Always boil afterward when you can. Boil water in birch bark. Grandpa smiled at this one because it proved fire answers took clever hands. Birch bark can hold water long enough to heat it. Shape a small container from thick bark, suspend it over flame, and fill it carefully. The water absorbs the heat before the bark can burn. Old woodsmen boiled soup in tree skin when metal was gone. It isn't a party trick. It's survival memory. Fire listens to physics, not packaging, and birch bark listened well long before kettles existed. Construct solar still in sand. When ground hides moisture deep below, the sun can coax it back out. Dig a shallow pit, place a container in the center, and cover the hole with plastic weighted in the middle. As the earth warms, water vapor rises and condenses, dripping into your cup. This method exists because heat separates water from soil quietly. Desert troops once relied on it when canteens dried. Time works for you here, not against you. You wait, and the sun works like a careful cook. Insulate bed with dry leaves. Cold steals rest faster than hunger steals strength. Stack dry leaves or pine needles beneath your bedroll until you feel height under your back. This matters because air trapped in dry material acts like padding and insulation at once. Forest people slept on what trees dropped long before mattresses were filled. Wet insulation cools. Dry insulation comforts. Shake debris free of insects and spread it thick. A raised bed keeps warmth close and dampness away. Good sleep is survival, wearing a blanket. Reflect fire with space blanket. A shiny sheet can make a small fire work like a big one. Hang or prop a space blanket behind your fire with the reflective side facing the flames, making sure it stays far enough away to avoid melting. The foil surface throws heat forward instead of letting it disappear into the dark. Campers and old woodsmen used this idea with metal long before foil existed. Reflection turns one direction of heat into many and keeps warmth where you're sitting. Bury hot rocks beneath bed. Long before electric blankets, people stored heat in stone. Warm, smooth rocks near a fire, then wrap them in thick fabric and place them under the sleeping area, not against skin. The rocks slowly release warmth through the night like a quiet stove. This works because stone holds heat far longer than air. It is old knowledge from cold places with thin walls and thinner fuel piles. A few stones could mean the difference between shivering and sleeping. Mix pine resin and charcoal. Did you know that early fire makers used tree sap like homemade fuel glue? Pine resin burns hot and crushed charcoal helps it stay lit longer. People combined them to make fire-starting material when nature would not cooperate. The mixture caught easily and burned stubbornly when wood refused. This was never about chemistry experiments. It was about survival on wet ground with numb fingers. Forests offered both ingredients freely to those who knew where to look and had learned patience from cold nights. Carved toggle for rope tension. Rope holds better when it has something solid to bite against. A simple wood toggle can lock tight lines without knots. Cut a strong stick, smooth the edges, and use it as a crossbar in rope loops where tension matters. You twist to tighten and turn to release. This trick kept shelters standing and packs closed long before buckles existed. Wood does what metal does when shaped right. Pressure plus position equals strength. Twist stinging nettle into cordage. Wild plants made rope long before stores ever did. Stinging nettle looks unfriendly, but hides strong fibers inside its stalks. Once dried and stripped, those fibers twist into cord as tough as anything sold in packaging. Old countryside skills turned weeds into tools and vines into lifelines. Cordage tied shelters, carried loads, and set snares. Learning which plants build strength taught patience and eyes that saw use in what others saw as pain. Nature gives rope to those willing to harvest carefully. Eat pine cambium for energy. The forest fed people long before stores did, and inner tree bark quietly saved lives. The soft layer beneath pine bark, called cambium, was eaten in lean seasons for its starch and mild sweetness. It gave slow fuel when nothing else could be found. Not every tree offers food, and not every season welcomes stripping bark, so restraint mattered. Old woodsmen taught this as knowledge, not habit. It is emergency nourishment, not a meal plan, and survival wisdom always favors tomorrow as much as today. Cold smoked meat for preservation. Before refrigerators, smoke-built pantries. Cold smoking preserved meat because cool, steady smoke dries surface moisture and discourages spoilage organisms without cooking the flesh. The resulting food kept longer and traveled farther. It was winter insurance hanging in sheds and attics. Fire, salt, and time were the only tools. People learned that slow and cool save better than hot and fast. Preservation was patience wearing smoke. When smoke curled thin and blue instead of thick and black, that meant the meat would still be there when hunger came knocking. Set sensitive figure 4, deadfall. Old trappers respected engineering as much as hunger. They spoke of figure-4 triggers as lessons in balance, not nut toys. The design taught leverage, weight, and precision. It was never a casual skill. A mistake risked injury long before food. Grandpa said anyone who studied traps should study responsibility first. Knowledge came before action. Learning how pressure and position work kept fingers safe and minds sharp. Bushcraft wasn't about showing off. It was about learning silently and choosing when not to use a skill as carefully as when to use it. Chew willow bark for pain. People eased aches with trees before bottles did. Willow bark relieved pain because it contains a natural compound related to aspirin. Woodsmen chewed it during long days when joints or heads protested. It was bitter but dependable. Not all bodies handle plants the same, and old-timers respected strength as much as remedy. Natural didn't always mean gentle. Grandpa taught that relief and risk walked together in forests. Bark was help when nothing else was around, not a daily habit. The wild cured, but it also demanded care. Track shadow tip for east. Before compasses were pocket small, shadows quietly told stories. The tip of a stick's shadow traces time across the earth. People watched its movement to read direction when nothing else spoke. East can be found not by guessing, but by observing change. Grandpa trusted the sun more than gadgets. Weather might hide mountains, but it couldn't hide Simon's movement. Learning to watch shadows wasn't just navigation, it was learning patience. The land answers slowly. Those who rushed got lost. Those who waited learned the map written in light. Magnetized needle on silk fabric. Long before stores sold compasses, people made them from scraps. Rubbing steel against certain fibers built static that coaxed alignment from metal. The trick mattered because direction decided life and death on unknown ground. Grandpa loved this one because it turned curiosity into survival. Science lived in pockets, not classrooms. A needle that points north can change everything. When trails vanished and stars hid, a trembling sliver of steel carried more authority than bravado ever could. Survival favored quiet knowledge over loud confidence every single time. Fluff tampon for tinder flash. Out in the wild, fire favors the driest fibers, not fancy gear. A tampon is made to absorb, which means when it's fluffed, it catches sparks easily. Veterans used this trick because it worked when leaves were damp and pockets were empty. Treat it like emergency tinder only, and keep it away from open flame once lit, because it flashes fast. Use common sense, clear space, and respect fire. A small spark can grow quickly when fed properly. Seal small cuts with superglue. When bandages are scarce, a thin layer of household superglue can close shallow. Clean cuts long enough to keep dirt out. This trick matters because infection, not bleeding, ends things early outdoors. It's not for deep wounds, bites, or dirty injuries, and it should never replace medical care when available. Used sparingly, it creates a temporary skin that holds edges together. Think of it as a last resort barrier, not a miracle. Clean first, apply lightly, and watch for redness or heat afterward. Fill unlubricated condom with water. Survival is often about carrying what doesn't look like a container. An unlubricated condom can safely hold a surprising amount of water when supported inside a sock or cloth. This matters because hydration outranks almost everything in the wild. It's flexible, lightweight, and seals well, but fragile. Treat it gently and keep it shaded to avoid heat damage. It's not a canteen. It's a backup lifeline when nothing else will hold. Use careful handling and never trust sharp edges near it. Hone blade on car window. A dull blade turns work into danger. In a pinch, the top edge of a car window can act like a fine hone. It's hard glass with a smooth curve, good for straightening tired metal. This works because honing realigns an edge rather than removing much steel. It won't replace proper stones, but it can restore bite enough to keep you working. Use light pressure, steady angles, and patience. Your refreshing sharpness, not grinding metal away. Slow hands save blades and knuckles alike. Cover hot spots with duct tape. Feet fail first. Duct tape on tender skin can stop blisters before they bloom. Clean and dry the area, then apply tape smoothly without wrinkles. This shield reduces friction where boots chew and socks rub raw. It buys you miles when stopping isn't an option. Tape isn't medicine, but it's protection. Check the skin daily and replace as needed. A small strip can save your stride, and your stride often decides whether you reach shelter before dark. Carve gorge hook for fishing. Long before metal hooks were common, people carved fishing tools from wood and bone when hunger pressed hard. A gorge hook was a small, straight piece hidden inside bait, designed to turn once swallowed. It wasn't efficient, but it fed families when nothing else would. It worked because fish pulled against the line and the hook wedged naturally. Modern gear is kinder and easier, but this method proves that skill often mattered more than supply. Render fat for waterproof tallow. Rain once met its enemy in a pot of melted fat. Rendering animal fat into tallow created a water-resistant coating for boots, packs, and cloth. When heated slowly, fat released oil that hardened as it cooled. That coating soaked into fibers and slowed soak-through. Dry feet meant fewer illnesses and stronger travel. Survival depended on staying dry as much as staying fed. Tallow smelled plain, but worked hard. Waterproofing was once cooked, not purchased. Scrub grease with wood ash. When soap was not an option, yesterday's fire did the cleaning. Wood ash cut grease because it is naturally alkaline. Mixed with a little water, it formed a gritty paste that stripped oil from pots and pans. It wasn't gentle, but it got dishes usable fast. Rinsing afterward mattered. Clean cookware kept flavors true and prevented spoilage. A dirty pot could threaten tomorrow's meal. Ash didn't smell pretty, but it kept kitchens working. Step softly using fox walk. Forests reward quiet movement. The fox walks keeps weight rolling gently from foot edge to flat rather than slamming heel first. This reduces noise and spreads pressure evenly. Hunters used it to close distance, and travelers used it for safety. Sound carries farther than footsteps seem, especially in dry leaves or snow. Walking like this builds awareness and balance. Silence becomes skill. The ground tells stories when you stop shouting at it with your boots. Flash signal mirror at aircraft. Sunlight once did what radios now do. A reflective surface in the right hands became a silent signal. Aircraft crews were trained to notice flashes because nature doesn't sparkle on purpose. Angle and motion mattered more than strength. A proper flash cut through miles better than a shout ever could. Signaling with light was about precision, not panic. When lost, your job was not noise. It was making the sky blink in a way nothing else would. Waterproof boots with beeswax mixture. Did you know that woodsmen once sealed leather with warmed beeswax long before sprays existed? Melt a little wax with oil until soft, then rub it deep into clean, dry boots. Warm the leather gently so it absorbs instead of sitting on top. The coating blocks moisture and keeps leather from cracking. Wax fills tiny pores that let water seep through. It smells faintly sweet and works quietly for weeks. Dry boots mean warmer feet and fewer blisters in hard weather. Light wet birch bark easily. Birch bark carries its own fire inside it. Peel thin curls from the outer layer and keep them sheltered until needed. Even when damp, it lights because natural oils burn like candle wax. Tear it fine to expose more surface, and it'll catch when other tinder sulks. This makes birch a favorite in rainy forests. A single scrap can start a stubborn fire. When everything feels soaked, look for white bark. It remembers the forest sun better than anything else around. Catch rain in spread poncho. A poncho can become a sky bucket. Stretch it wide between 4 points or hold it open with corners tied to sticks. Angle one low corner so water runs into a bottle or cup. Rain gathers faster across fabric than through leaves. This works because surface area matters more than depth. Light showers become usable water. Keep the cloth clean so runoff stays safe. When clouds finally answer thirst, let your gear do the catching while your hands do the waiting. Lash spruce boughs for snowshoes. Fresh snow swallows boots whole, so widen your step with branches. Cut green spruce boughs and lash them beneath each foot in an oval frame. The needles and sticks spread your weight like a floating fence. This keeps you from sinking and tiring fast. It isn't pretty, but it works because pressure disperses. The forest once supplied travel where rope and wood were scarce. When snow stacks deep, walking wide beats walking proud. Orient map using analog watch. When a compass is missing, time still points somewhere. Hold an analog watch flat and aim the hour hand at the sun. Halfway between that hand and 12 marks north or south depending on hemisphere. This works because the sun and clock share a predictable dance. It is not perfect, but it gives direction when nothing else answers. Clouds may argue, but light tells truth when it shows. A watch becomes more than time. It becomes distance made visible. Pack deep wound with sugar. Old medical books mention sugar because it can slow bacterial growth by pulling moisture away from germs. That's the science behind why it sometimes appears in history stories. But deep wounds are dangerous business. Packing anything into them can trap infection to entanglement, damage tissue, and delay real healing. Treat this as a lesson in how people once fought infection, not as modern advice. Today, deep injuries always deserve professional care. Knowing history builds respect. It should never replace a hospital. Bic lighter ferro rod. A small pocket lighter hides a second job most people never use. The steel striker wheel can throw sparks even when fuel is gone, which makes it a backup fire tool rather than trash. Survival folks valued anything that worked twice. The trick mattered because flame fails before steel does. When gas runs out, sparks still fly. And sparks still mean fire with the right tinder. Never waste a lighter just because it won't light. Tools don't retire, they change duty. Make sludge lamp with oil. People once created makeshift lamps from oil and cloth when stores and power failed. These stories survive because fuel and light were tightly linked before electricity arrived. But improvised lamps also burned houses down. Open oil near flame is unforgiving. Soot, spills, and runaway flame were common causes of disaster. This belongs to history lessons, not living rooms. Knowing what earlier families attempted builds awareness of risk, not permission. Light can warm or destroy, depending on respect. Improvisation without safety becomes hazard dressed as ingenuity. Dig Dakota fire hole vent. Outdoor manuals describe sunken fires because they burn lower and hide flame from wind. The general idea was conserving heat and reducing visibility. But holes and fire mix badly when airflow goes wrong. Smoke buildup, collapse, and oxygen loss can follow fast. Treat this as a study in how airflow affects flame, not as a casual project. Earth and fire are unpredictable partners. True bushcraft chooses simplicity over show and safety over tradition when ground and breath are involved. For more contents like this, click here to subscribe.